And welcome to the Hearing Room Podcast. It's actually the Woodshed Podcast from the Hearing Room, and that was the Hearing Room song that I wrote. And I'm here today with Tim Foley. How are you doing today, Tim?
Doing well, Aaron. How are you? I'm
good, and thank you for the compliment. Tim was saying my song sounds a little like REM, and that's thanks to Doug Kwartler. And because he's a great producer, and he's one recording my album, so give him a shout out. But today we're here with Tim Foley, and we're going to talk in just a couple minutes after I bring up my favorite topic, the hearing room, and the stuff we do here every week. So we do have the podcast every week on Mondays, and we do it live, most of them, but one of the weeks, on the second Monday of the month, we have the Blues Jam. And the Blues Jam is a lot of fun. We have a band here that consists of Woody Carpinella, Roland Oxenbein, and Tim Foley. And they are your backup band. So if you want to come jam with them, it's a fantastic time. It's really great to do blues once a month. And it's really great to do blues anytime. But once a month we do this at the Hearing Room. You come and you can play your songs with or without them. It depends on what you want. But you can hear them play as well, and that's always a treat. So that's going to be once a month. And then we have on Tuesdays the open mic, 7 to 10. We have on Wednesdays, Let's Have Words. That's 7 to 10 as well. And Let's Have Words is spoken word open mic. On Thursdays, we have the Singin' Jam, where Mark Allio comes and he leads everybody, and a lot of great different songs that you can do, old rock songs, pop songs, some from all eras, really. And he puts up words and chords on the screen, and the group picks individually. Everybody gets to pick a song, and you get to do it. And then there are solos and all kinds of other stuff. So that's a fun event as well. On Friday nights, we have different jams. We have the first Friday of the month is an acoustic jam. The third Friday is the bluegrass jam. And other Fridays are other things. We have different events. We have a Pink Floyd open mic that's coming up, and other stuff that is on Friday night. And all this is on hearingroom.net. Saturdays, we do various events as well, but one of the regular ones is we have Performance Lab, and we do things like the Drone Night, where you come and you bring electronic kind of synthesizer equipment, and you can drone, meaning you all play at once with electronic equipment. And you would think it would be like a big cacophony and sound terrible, but it's amazing. It's actually quite relaxing because it's a wall of sound that just like hits you, and it's loud, and the noise becomes meditative, actually. So it's really a cool evening if you want to come check that out. Then we also have other events on Saturday night, but Sundays is a big day. We have 12:30 to 1:30, the drum circle, and then I have my open mic 2 to 5 on Sundays. And my open mic is sitting on the floor in a circle, and we play one song each. Lots of fun to do. So lots of good stuff coming up at the Hearing Room. You should check it out at hearingroom.net. And also, you should look at the Greenville Junction Shop. The Greenville Junction Shoppy is the place to get your upcycled items. There are all kinds of things, household appliances, there's furniture, there's electronics, all kinds of things that are upcycled, things that are found and restored and available to you. So you can get that by going to Greenville Junction, Junction, Shoppy, SHOPPE, on Facebook. And there's also a website, greenvillejunction.com. So Greenville Junk with a K, shun.com. And there's a lot of stuff you can get there. They also do estate clean out and garage clean out, and you can say hi to Mark and he'll help you out. So they are in Greenville, New Hampshire, and Clinton, Massachusetts, and they're a great place to go. So check out the Greenville Junction shop. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I present you Tim Foley. So, Tim, how are you today?
I'm doing great. And I'm also a big fan of upcycling.
Yeah, upcycling's awesome.
Yeah.
I have actually refurbished some great computers that work perfectly fine.
Wow.
Because Apple will help you just reinstall, right? It's not like you have to go buy an operating system for it and figure all that stuff out. Apple will just help you do it. So I've gotten some used Apple computers, and they work. So
yeah, I've got DVD and VHS because of upcycling.
Yeah, well, I think VHS, I am one of the few people as well that continues to have VHS tapes in my house. I don't get any new ones, but I have the old ones. So, Tim, where do you hail from?
Well, at this point, it's a little difficult to pinpoint. It's just periods in my life. I was born in the Melrose Wakefield Hospital, and I ended up in Wakefield, but the space between there is New Orleans, Vermont, New Hampshire, Cape Cod.
Wow. So New Orleans kind of stands out there a little bit. When did you live there?
98, I moved down.
Oh, yeah.
And I had never been there. I had never visited there. But I found out all the music that I was gravitating to was coming out of New Orleans.
Yeah, I did go there once, and as a tourist, and I found it really musical because obviously they have the Preservation Hall jazz band and that kind of stuff. But the other thing is you walk down the street and there's street musicians all the time.
Yeah. And I've heard some wonderful musicians and like percussionists who are banging on PVC buckets, and they would lift off one side to get a bass note ringing out. But there's a lot of inventiveness. Like I've seen lute players playing jazz, so it's an amazing place. Music just oozes out of the city.
Yeah, so you grew up in Wakefield?
No, by the time I was 7, my family had moved to New Jersey and Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And then back to Massachusetts. Formative years were mostly in Framingham, Mass.
Okay. And you went, was your dad or mom doing some...
Well, my father was, I saw on his resume, a scientist. He ended up being a principal engineer for Raytheon. He would move around to work under people who he thought he would learn from. And so he worked on the navigational system for the Apollo. And
wow.
So he'd go out to White Sands and wouldn't tell what he was working on.
Yeah, so he designed rocket engines? And...
no, he was more like a computer guy in the guided systems.
So he's a rocket scientist?
Well, he could be a scientist.
Okay. Yeah. So, but I was thinking you could say, he's no rocket scientist, and with your dad, that's not true.
Yeah, he was sort of a rocket scientist. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So that's cool. And so you moved around. Sounds like academically, he was probably pushing you into science. Did you end up doing anything?
He really didn't know what to do with me because I was more into the arts.
Okay. And he was not, I take it.
No, he would dance around, but that's about it.
Okay.
I did learn a few songs from my grandmother, but they're Christmas songs on the piano.
Yeah, was she a big influence for the music?
No, actually, I had to sort of find that out for myself. for the influences. I kept on hearing about this thing called blues, but growing up in Framingham, there wasn't a blues station that was happening. There was WAAF and programs like that, and more rock and pop. And so I had to guess what blues was, and I started listening to the Allman Brothers, and then they mentioned T-Bone Walker for Stormy Monday. So then I had to sort of dive into it and start researching the blues from there.
Yeah, so that was, when did you start playing?
When I was 15, around 75.
Oh, actually, that's about when I started, too. That's cool.
Okay.
So when you were 15, you were... What inspired you? Why did you decide to pick up a guitar or whatever you picked up?
Well, actually, I used to go. My sister had a guitar, but my brother and I would go to this woman's house, and we would get lessons together. And then he dropped out, and I'd show up, continued with it, and then one day I showed up with a Penco SG copy electric guitar, and she says, "I can't teach you anymore." And so, I went for a few more lessons, but most of it was learning songs on a cassette deck. Push a little forward, copy the lick, rewind, pause, play. So you get this finger action: forward, rewind, play, forward, rewind, play.
People who learn music now, who are younger, like a 15-year-old today, they don't appreciate what it took to do that.
Oh, you just can get everything you want on YouTube now.
Right, but it was annoying to because you'd never rewind it to the exact right spot.
No,
and then you even with the little counter that they made you press to mark your spot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was a huge improvement going for records, which I started off buying, and it was more efficient on the cassette deck when you're learning a song, rather than lifting the needle and putting it back.
Yeah, I guess that is more. So the technology slowly improved.
Yes.
But now with YouTube and MP3s.
But YouTube, you have to find, if you want to learn like songs from someone on YouTube, find someone who's actually playing the stuff right. Because anyone will say, "Yeah, I can play this," but there might be missing some idiosyncrasies of the song.
Yeah. So how do you determine that?
Well, I guess you mature into a musician and you say, "No, that's not right."
Okay. And so you did the cassette deck thing, and you were learning the licks one at a time, and you did it all by ear?
Pretty much, yeah. And then I broke my leg in hockey in high school, and so I was out for a little while, and so then I started taking lessons from this wonderful guitar player, Rick Zurich. And at that time, I was into the jazzier stuff, like the fusion stuff, like Steely Dan and things like that. And so he taught me Josie and things like that, and I went from there.
Okay. So, but you were learning like jazz chords and all that stuff from him, and
he was making it fun. He said, "What do you want to learn?" And I say, "Well, how about Josie?" And so we worked on that for a long time. And to play it, a song like that, you have to like grow into it, because there are some complicated chords in that song. So this is a song I wrote when I was coming from New Orleans, and my father had called me, and he said that he had 6 months to live, and so I packed everything up in 5 days and wanted to get back by Thanksgiving. And so I befriended a dog who lived underneath the house. He belonged to a guy in the back of the house, but I took over care for him. And so I asked him if he wanted to go for a ride, and he jumped in. His name's Zeke.
Okay.
So we went for a 27.5-hour ride. Would have been quicker, but I had a U-Haul behind me, and every time I tried to get going a little faster than 55, I had the shaking of the trailer. And then there was truck suck, which, the truck would go by and the turbulence would start shaking it too. So I only had to keep it at 55, which is slow.
It's very slow, yeah.
So this is called What You Never Had.
Sleeping dog in a Crescent City U-Haul. City shrinks like a blurry view of a wall. Feeling for what I left behind me. On this bridge to Slidell's and I'm from the car. Looked inside to see what I gave you.
So, when did you write that one?
Well, I wrote that one probably about 2002, something like that. Yeah.
So how many albums do you have out?
I've got one instrumental album I did up in Vermont. I'm currently working on a new one with more of my jazzy material, with some wonderful musicians, Richard Gates on bass, Fabio Perizzolo on percussion, drums, and Mike Sax McLaughlin on saxophone. And I'm on acoustic.
All right, great.
You guys are wonderful.
Yeah.
Good that everyone wants them to be playing with them, so it's hard to corral them all up into the same area.
Yeah. So that was great. So when you wrote that one, your style is sort of, it looks like slide mostly.
Yes.
So is that something you started with? Or?
Yeah, well, it's an experiment. Slide is always... I'll back up. Slide is hard and easy at the same time. It's easy. You could play the 3-chord thing and play some blues. It's hard to get out of the 3-chord thing and play non-blues with slide. I've been trying to work with pressing notes down behind the slide. So... I had seen Sonny Landreth do these chords behind the slide, and I think he's from another planet, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because he'll do all these weird chords behind the slide, and then he does something with tremolo, and it'll start hitting down here below the nut, and it makes it sound like a helicopter. I don't know how he does it.
Wow. I'll have to check that out. So, you were, when you were starting, you seemed like blues was what you wanted to do. So, was that just what you focused on at the beginning?
Well, I found it intriguing. Like I said, I had to try to find out, what is this blues thing? And then I got into it, and when I moved to New Hampshire, I really got into the blues. I go down to the local store, and I buy up all their blues cassettes.
Of course, yeah.
And then I started a band up there called Oops and the Stainmasters up in the Mount Washington Valley. And we were the only, it was like a mixture of blues, rock, more of a rock and blues type of thing.
Right.
We did a lot of covers, like the Powder Blues Band from Canada. Some the T-Bone Walker and Robert Cray and things like that.
Yeah, Robert Cray was just becoming really big around then, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him when I was getting into it, because I used to listen to the Midnight Blues show where you had like 12 to 3 a.m.
Oh, okay.
I was in Kansas City, so it's similar to being in New Hampshire and trying to play the blues.
Well, we were the only rock and blues band from there to Littleton, so there was a band on the other side of the Kank. They had a bigger following, but before we arrived, it was just mostly a lot of cover bands that had been there for a long time, and all of a sudden I consider us upstarts in the valley, because we were doing a rock and blues type of thing.
Well, did you play guitar with the band? Or,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And vocals as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so was there a particular blues style you liked?
Well, I liked, I sort of gravitated toward the funky stuff. At that time, I was into more of the authentic, jazzy type blues guys, like T-Bone Walker. And more of a groove-oriented type of thing. B.B. King, of course. Freddie King. Freddie King was, I wanted to be Freddie King at one time. So much so that I made a little cutout of Freddie King, and I had a little clock radio, and I put him in a box with Christmas lights, and I put him on the top of the Christmas tree. And when my grandmother came to visit, she says, "What's that little man doing on top of the Christmas tree?" Say, "Well, that's Freddie King, Grandma. Get him off there." So she wasn't too pleased. But I was very into the Freddie King Sings album.
Okay. Do you? So what else do you have that you play blues related? You got something?
Let's see.
Or even original bluesy.
Well, I do have a song. When I came back from New Orleans, I was a little bit disenchanted with with music. I found that I had gone to New Orleans and it ended up being a very lonely place for me. And so I threw my mic stand out in the snow and put my guitars underneath the bed. I didn't touch anything for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I had spent all my time doing music and trying to move forward in it, and I wasn't in a good space. So I thought that New Orleans music had brought me to a lonely place, and I said, the hell with it.
Okay.
And so then one day I said, maybe I'll take the guitar out. And so I did, and for some reason I tuned the guitar to a B. So B, F sharp, B, F sharp,
wow.
B.
I haven't heard that
D sharp. And so it's pretty much just before the strings start flopping on the fretboard. So it's really low. And I wrote the song in 5 minutes.
All right.
So it's an instrumental.
Cool. That was nice. I like the melody there. It's pretty.
Oh, thank you. That was called Here I Am. So there I was.
And there you are.
And so then I thought, well, I guess that was just so easy to come up with that song. I said, I guess I should start playing again.
Yeah. So when you started playing again, I mean, what were you doing when you weren't playing?
That was sort of lost because playing guitar was a big part of my life, and I just took it away purposely. I said, and I was trying to find out what to do, and so it was something missing in my life. So it was sort of an empty feeling. This whole time, well, I've spent a lot of time, many years, working in human services. So I work, of course. And so that has been my work since 1990.
Human services meaning?
Working with people with disabilities. In New Orleans, I worked with people with traumatic brain injuries, people with autism. Currently working for an organization on the North Shore. I'm a case manager for affordable housing.
Oh, cool. Did you do like therapy kind of stuff or more administrative?
More case manager, hands-on type of thing, community supports. I've been a nursing assistant, behavior interventionist. I worked at a program, HUD funded, HUD. Vocational interest program in Lynn, and unfortunately HUD pulled the plug on that. But that was a really good program because we would help people who are homeless find work and help them on the computer and help them write their resumes and things of that nature.
I actually did that too. Okay. I was working at a place in Boston, and it was like a job retraining kind of thing. So same idea.
Okay,
so you did like new immigrants or things like that.
Most of the individuals, it was a free service. Most of the individuals came from a substance abuse residential program.
Okay, so that's a challenge.
So when they would level up, they'd come to see us, and they get a get well job.
Right. Yeah. That's similar. It's a challenge to do that because they're probably not all motivated.
Well, there are people who were court-ordered to come into the program, and many of them, some of them hadn't accepted where they were. So they might have been angry because they were told to go there. Some people volunteered to go in. The individuals who I found had the most frustration are the like guys who have been in blue-collar jobs doing like labor or work on construction sites, things like that. Where you don't need a resume to get those jobs.
Right.
Someone on the crew leaves, and someone on the crew says, "Oh, well, I know a guy." So he comes in and gives a handshake, and they see how they do for a few days, and that's the interview. So for those guys who they can't drive, they can't have a cell phone, and all of a sudden they have to get a get well job. And they have to write a resume. A lot of the guys, it was multi-tiered because they had to work on a computer, which they didn't have to. And no one's born with computer skills until they have to use them.
Right.
So here's, a lot of these guys are late 40s, starting to learn how to use the computer because they have to, because that's the only way to find a job these days.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that in your 40s.
Yeah. So a lot of them would get mad and walk out, and they say, "Oh, I'll be here, cool off, come back, and
right,
we'll help you with your resume." I did construction up in New Hampshire in
did you?
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty foreign world to me, but
well, I'll tell you, it's not really good for your fingers. I remember helping my brother. We were putting siding on this hexagon log cabin, and it was, 10 below zero, and you really can't get the nails out of your belt pockets with gloves on. So
Yeah.
And then you hit your hand, and it's bleeding, and you say, that should really hurt, but I don't feel a darn thing.
Because you're frozen. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's really a young person's occupation.
Yeah.
Because I think your body spends all day just keeping itself warm,
Right.
and then you come home and your muscles and your joints are creaking, and
Yeah.
that's it. And
So-
you go back to do it again.
And then at night you go out and you play guitar, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So where did you play typically? You just
Up in New Hampshire?
Yeah, bars and stuff.
Bars. Played at the Red Parker Pub. It's interesting. That's back when they allowed smoking inside, and so the stage they moved things around. They refurbished it, but there used to be a stage there. It was up, it was 2 or 3 feet off the floor, and I remember looking out, and it was like looking above a cloud. So my head was above this blanket of smoke, and the patrons were below it. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I actually remember going into clubs where you had to deal with smoke in order to play, and I hate it.
Yeah.
It's terrible for your voice.
Oh yeah, and I would when I would come home, because we were playing rock and blues, so we're moving around a lot, and you start sweating, and sweat and smoke, good mixture. And so I'd come home, and I lived out in the woods, and I would just disrobe outside and just throw my clothes on the driveway. I didn't want that smell in the house.
Well, especially with a blues club. I mean, there's lots of smoking in most of those that I had experience in it anyway. So you did that in New Hampshire, and you said you moved where else?
From New Hampshire, I was ready to move, and I decided to go to New Orleans. My parents were moving from Framingham. They built this house on Cape Cod, so I helped them out move, and then I went down to New Orleans after that.
All right. Well, it's actually the halfway point.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to take a short break here. We'll keep talking.
All right.
So I'm talking with Tim Foley, but I also want to talk about the hearing room and the stuff we're doing here. So the hearing room, as most of you know, is a 501c3. We are a venue that requires participation, and part of the participation would be membership. So if you can, you should become a member. It's $100 a year, and it helps us by supporting all of the expenses just to keep us open. So we are able to do that only by having some input from the community, and that's financial and also participatory. So you can also volunteer, but the membership is $100, gets you a membership card, a t-shirt, and the satisfaction of knowing that you are keeping us open. And so if you come here and you enjoy it, you should try to contribute by going to hearingroom.net, and you can contribute by also using your talents and helping us with things like setup and maybe sound and the doors and cleanup. We need people to do the floors and the different things that need to be done in order for the popcorn to be made and things like that. So you should check out hearingroom.net to find out more and see what you can do. And then we have the Greenville Junction shop we want to mention, because they are an upcycling store. They are a store that allows you to reuse items that otherwise would be landfill. And so You can do that by going to Greenville, Greenville, Junction, Junction, Shoppe, Shoppe, and they are on Facebook. They also have a website at Greenville Junction with a K, Junction, greenvillejunction.com. And you can get all kinds of things done there. They have household appliances, furniture, electronics, and more. So check them out on Facebook, check them out on the web, and they also provide services of estate and garage clean-out, so you can take advantage of that. That's the Greenville Junction Shop in Greenville, New Hampshire, and Clinton, Massachusetts. So we are back here with Tim Foley. And Tim, so you're in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Were you playing full-time pretty much? Or
No, I was...
or you were at that other place that you worked in Human Services?
I was working with individuals with traumatic brain injury on Canal Street.
Okay, and what did you do, though, for music? Like, were you hanging out?
Well, I'd go out to a lot of the jams and the open mics. Interesting, when I moved to New Orleans, I had two 16-hour shifts on the weekend, and I had Monday through Friday off. I was like a photo negative of what I was used to.
Wow.
And coming from New Hampshire, where most things close at 9, New Orleans was a cultural shock. I lived on Dublin Street, and it was about 8 blocks from the Maple Leaf Bar on Oak Street. Mm-hmm. And there was a blues jam there every Wednesday, the Mark Bancroft Blues Jam, and I would go there religiously every Tuesday to see the Rebirth Brass Band, who are still playing on Tuesdays since then. It's pretty amazing. I guess the Maple Leaf Bar was the first bar that opened up after Katrina, so it was. But it was difficult to stay home, where I would learn that so-and-so is playing down at the Maple Leaf Bar, and I could just walk down there.
That's cool.
So I spent a lot of time there.
And did you ever play like in Bourbon Street and on the street, or no?
I didn't play on Bourbon Street. I played on Frenchman Street, which I suggest that's anyone who goes to New Orleans, go down Frenchman Street. I would do the 2 16-hour shifts, and then on Sunday night, I'd go over to Checkpoint Charlie's at the end of Frenchman Street, and it's on Esplanade there. And they had this funk jam, and so I would join the funk jam, get up on stage at 2 a.m, things like that.
And were you doing a lot of electric?
That was an electric type of thing. Mm-hmm. I did get together with Takayuki Moro, a wonderful guitar player, and we were known as Tim Taka, 2 guys with the guitars, and we had a regular gig at the Spotted Cat on Frenchman Street. So
why did you come back to New England?
Well, my father called me. He says, well, I have 6 months to live. And I said, well, that's a good excuse to leave. And so I just packed things up. And my companion, Zeke, who lived underneath the house, he joined me, and we drove to Cape Cod.
Your companion, Zeke, underneath the house?
Yeah, he lived underneath the house. Well, he was a dog.
Okay. I was going to say, most people don't live underneath the house.
Yeah, there was, some of the floorboards are missing. I throw him a biscuit every once in a while.
Okay.
He belonged to someone else, but I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I wrote him a note, but he was coming with me.
Yeah.
We became friends.
Well, that's good. So how long did you have Zeke?
Zeke, unfortunately, he lost one of his legs, and had him for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a good dog is a good thing. You got a dog now, or?
I do not have a dog now.
Yeah, neither do I.
But I will have another dog.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
Their dogs are the best people. They really are.
Yeah. They are almost people, that's for sure. So when you came back here, how did you get back into the music? Were you already connected?
Well, I did a lot of open mics, and I would try to find gigs here and there. And then, so when I came back, I was on Cape Cod for a couple of years. And then I moved up to Vermont after that.
Okay.
And I got together with a few musicians who are known as the Sweet Potato Kings.
Mm-hmm.
And basically playing my songs with bass, upright bass, and percussion.
Oh, cool.
And solo gigs.
All right. And which part of Vermont? Burlington or south?
Well, I worked in Burlington. And I lived in Winooski, lived in Warren, and I also lived in Underhill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vermont's pretty. I've been up there a number of times, but the roads are a little slow. There's only one highway, so you're pretty much stuck.
Well, it takes an hour to get everywhere, so
yeah, pretty much.
It's hard to make a living unless you're in a professional field. Many people have 2 or 3 jobs, and but that's what you do for the beauty, I guess.
Yeah. Well, New Hampshire's a little easier. So,
yeah.
So you got another song you want to do?
Sure. This is there's more of a bossa nova feel for this one. It's
okay.
It's called "Look Up at the Moon."
Trees push up the moon, the shadows slide on rooftops, from lights on the plains. This view from my porch, thunderous air brake systems, blinking lights on sleep. Look up at the moon, look, you'd see it too, though you're miles away. I can look for you. The blue dragonfly hovers so close to my hand, I can feel its breeze. This is just as rare, feeling your breath on my face. Our lips barely touch. Look up at the moon, if you looked you'd see it too. Oh, I'm miles away. I can look with you. Look up at the moon. If you looked, you'd see it too. Though you're miles away. Look up at the moon. If you looked, you'd see it too. Though you're miles away. I can look with you. I can look with you.
Thank you.
That was great. I love that bossa nova sound. That's nice.
Yeah, I don't know where it's from. I love bossa nova. I guess I was listening to Stan Getz, and that inspired me.
Yeah, it sounds great. And when was that written? When did you get inspired for that?
That was, I believe, I wrote that up in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 2000s. I lose track of time, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
A lot of the songs, especially instrumentals, I'll start it and I'll just keep adding to it and adding to it. So they're hard to name because I could, just keep adding a little spice here, a little spice there, or change a verse, or I'd tweak it. So they're hard to name and hard to nail down when exactly it started.
Right. Well, so you've been around a lot of different places doing music, and what was your favorite experience playing out live?
Probably, well, I had mentioned that I'm working on this album, and so last November we had a gig up at the Cat in the Cradle, the Byfield Community Arts Center.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Rupert Waits. He played prior to us getting on stage. So it was a banner night. It was probably all that I could ever hope for in a gig.
Mm-hmm.
And they were listening and
right,
clapping and cheering. So that was good.
Yeah. So Rupert Waits is great. I actually had him on the podcast too.
Oh yeah, he's a wonderful instrumentalist, songwriter. Yeah.
Yeah. But your style, it varies a little bit. I mean, you got the bossa nova in there, you got the blues, you're doing open tunings.
Yeah, it's hard to. I found it difficult to pigeonhole. Like I remember calling magazines or putting in an advertisement for a magazine like entertainment in the entertainment papers, like up in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
And you really can only put 3 words, because they list all the bands. And it's like, well, this is sort of like a bossa nova, blues, funky, classical thing with
but that's 4
songs
words.
and instrumentals for voice and guitar.
Right.
So many words. So they just put me down as rock.
Of course. Rock encompasses everything, right?
Yeah, there you go. Or folk, whatever. They go, so they ask what kind of guitar, what do you play? Acoustic. Okay, you're a folk musician.
Yeah, you usually do acoustic?
Oddly enough, when I was in New Orleans, I played mostly acoustic. Taka played electric, and then we had this other gentleman, Shu, and so when he would join us, we would call the Tim Taka Shu Trio, and both of these guys were like, they would absorb everything. So Shu would play bongos, and he would play soprano, saxophone, and bongos at the same time. I don't know how he did it, but
I can't imagine that, but okay.
But Taka was he was very interesting little guy. He was like he was very quiet, like a monk, and I had the pleasure of showing him new music. They say, well, listen to this. This is B.B. King. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, he had all these B.B. King licks down. It sounded like B.B. King. And so, okay, have this. Here's Pat Metheny.
Right.
And he sounded like Pat Metheny. So he would like absorb it, and it would become part of him. But the cool thing was, I say, here's Sonny Landreth. And all of a sudden, he was playing the chords behind the slide and say, oh, you son of a gun. I've been trying to do that.
Yeah, did he show you?
Well, he had these little teeny hands. So yeah, he was starting to get into it. But then he would be off on something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so interesting fellow.
Yeah, and you, when you play live, do you usually play with other people now? Or?
Well, if the gig pays enough, I can pay them.
Okay.
We do have a gig with the band, the Tim Foley Group, on September 19th, return performance up at the Byfield Community Arts Center.
Oh, good.
Series. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah. But you're at open mics quite a lot.
I run an open mic. I do an open mic at the Feng's Asian Cuisine in Wakefield every Tuesday night.
Okay.
Sign up at 7. And of course I'll go visit Person's open mic when she's playing over at the Walnut Street Cafe, and that's
your person. Yeah.
I go over there when she's performing and hosting her open mic.
Are we allowed to say her name? Or?
Kirsten Manville.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if we were allowed to reveal the connection. Yeah. So I guess you only go there typically when she's there, or
pretty much.
Yeah. Because I don't know the Walnut Street very well. It's
well, it's for me, having played in so many bars and hearing background noise and TVs going on, it's a bit intimidating to hear all TVs off and everyone listening. So
right.
The silence is deafening. So you can't let your mind wander on that. So.
Yeah, screw-ups are much louder when you don't have distractions.
Yeah, they don't know. They're not watching,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
But when they are, like at Byfield, I mean, I'm sure they're...
Yeah. Well, my first experience was there was the Howling Wolf in the Mid-City in New Orleans. And Taka and I, we had these pieces worked out and instrumentals, so we got up on stage, big stage. They even had like smoke screens going on. They had a sound person at the other end. It's like, whoa, it's a huge room. So that was I was freaking out because it was so quiet and everyone was listening.
Mm-hmm. It is nerve-wracking if you're not used to it.
You have to work through that. I'm still working through that sort of thing.
Yeah, see, I got over that by teaching kids. Because when kids aren't interested in what you're doing, it's pretty clear, and they don't hold back. No. So if you don't keep their attention, then they'll just start talking. They'll just start doing
or
something
asking
else.
Questions or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Or my favorite is, today's my birthday. That's not a question, but okay. Good for you. Happy birthday. But how often are you writing now? Do you do it on a regular schedule, or?
It's right now I'm working on refurbishing some songs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to fine-tune things. Interestingly, songs come to me. I don't know where they come from. Like that song that I just pulled the guitar out from underneath the bed and tuned the guitar to B tuning and wrote a song in 5 minutes. I don't know where that comes from.
What inspired you to B? I've never heard people tuning to B.
I don't know. What makes you do anything? It's like, who knows?
Yeah,
I think I would have gone lower, but the strings were like laying on the fretboard. So
right.
Anything lower is like...
you're not going to hear it.
You're not going to hear it, yeah.
So, you got something else you want to play?
Sure. Let's see. Well, I have another instrumental. This is called New Time. So I'm going to sing when I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
So I'm scat singing, I guess. I do.
So, you have that was almost like bossa nova sounding as well.
Yeah, that's so on that song. When I have the band, the sax player Mike McLaughlin will play in unison with me on the sax, and I'll be singing. So
cool!
Trying to create a different sound. So.
Yeah.
And with the bass and the drums, it has a lot of power to it.
Yeah, it was a nice melody.
Thanks.
So let's hear another one. You got something else?
Yeah. Let's see. I've got a song. Which one is my B tuning guitar? I think it's this one.
And what was that again? The B tuning?
B, F sharp, B, F sharp, B, D sharp.
Wow. I'm gonna have to try that one. It's cool.
It's cool. So it has pianistic qualities to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you have a B tuning, it's harder to keep in tune.
What kind of guitar is that?
This is I think it's a 1978 Gretsch folk singing model. This has had different names. There was a Jimmy Rogers model, the orchestra model, and it all depends on 1/8 of an inch difference on this lower bout.
Wow.
Interesting story that this guitar is. I bought both the classical and this at Lakeshore Guitars up in Colchester, Vermont, and when I got it, it was just resonating, and so I had a friend put a pickup system, a K&K system, in it, and he said, "Well, there's, some of the framework's loose, and." Which makes me think, well, there's no framework underneath there, so it's the top is vibrating more. Mm-hmm. And so the guitar, I thought, needed a little tweaking because the strings it needed the truss rod, some tweaking. So I figured, well, I can bring the strings down a little bit. So I took the truss rod cover up, and then I got my little wrench. I just twisted a little bit, and the nut came off.
Oops.
So the nut and part of the truss rod. And I looked at it, and someone had super glued that piece on the guitar like someone wouldn't notice as soon as they try to tweak it. And the thing is, I know who did it.
Okay.
Who should not touch guitars, by the way. I won't say their name.
Okay.
But I think when they adjust their truss rods, I don't think they know the difference between putting a lug nut on a tire or turning the truss rod nut.
Those are quite different.
Sort of like,
yeah.
Sort of.
It's interesting. You have a little microphone in the sound hole there. It's like, is that just like a lapel mic or something? What is that?
Yeah, it's a microphone. It's connected with these transducers underneath the bridge, and it comes out, and you can do a stereo type thing. I never use it because it has this tendency to have this sharp attack with my playing. But it's there if I need it, for light picking and things like that.
Right.
And it looks cool.
It does. It's because you can see it. Usually they put it under the bridge, but the microphone's just like sitting there under the sound hole.
Yes. Well, it looks like my tuner has gone by the wayside.
There's nothing like your ears to tell you that it's not in tune.
Well, I end up doing that anyways with this B tuning. This is called So It Goes.
They turn their backs on promises. They turn away from the things they'd say. Took what they made out to the field. Didn't want it to grow. Boy on the street, he's only 16. Shakes the man's hand to get what he needs. He didn't know how strong it was, found in the sand when they looked from above. So it goes. Little ones cry out from the den. Their mouths are dry and the parents are due. Poacher's snare kept her away. A bullet stopped him in his rescue. So it goes.
Thank you.
So where are you playing typically when you get a gig? Like it sounds like you have that's an open mic at Byfield.
Yeah, it's the up there. It's a regular gig. I'm not quite sure who's playing before us. There'll be a duo, I think, playing before us, and then the band will play over at the Byfield Community Arts Center.
Do you ever use that in your work? Use music?
I have worked at Dahab's, and I've played music, and
Yeah.
I try to. I really started to implement that when I was in New Hampshire, and I'd give everyone, tambourines and things like that, and I try to get everyone to play as loud as possible.
That's a good challenge. It sounds like the drum circle here.
Yeah,
yeah. And you think it's therapeutic for the clients?
I knew it was always therapeutic for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I would say anything goes, and I think the individuals who I was working with then, they enjoyed just being themselves and acting as flamboyant as they wanted to.
Well, and that's very freeing.
Yeah, I think they enjoyed that.
So we've come to a time here where we are going to ask the question. What advice do you give to people who are doing music around here?
Well, it depends on what you want to get out of it. If you were to want to start writing songs, that's one thing I noticed. There's a lot of people who don't write songs. They play songs, which is fine. But they think they can't do it. And so it's for me, when I started writing songs, I was, into the jazz fusion type thing, and I would say, oh, it's not this enough, or it's not Steely Dan enough, it doesn't have this quality enough. And what I was doing is I was just being afraid of being myself and listening to what I actually sound like. And so I think people need to just put that aside. And I started really writing songs when I told myself, I don't care if it sounds like a nursery rhyme, it'll be me, so let's go.
Right.
And I guess I'll have to just live with that.
You have your own unique perspective on everything. So, and anything else?
Just keep doing it. There's a lot of times where I get music from pictures I see in my head. I wrote a song for my brother, and I pictured a black and white TV of a beach scene with light breeze blowing through palm trees. So I tried to portray that in guitar music. And so, yeah.
Well, so why don't you play one more?
Okay.
And we're getting close to the end here. What's this we're going to hear?
Let's see. That's that. Let me take out the this one here. Let's see. This is more of a like a jazzy blues number. Thinking of the name of it. Well, it'll come to me. I'll tell you after the song.
Is this an original? Or?
Yes,
okay.
It is.
Okay.
Trick of the heart, you find your mind breaking. Trick right from the start. Your body's aching. You don't believe your eyes. It didn't happen. Where did it all go? Where did it all go? Those big bright eyes, now they don't show. Would you believe it so? You do believe it so? Was a mask to hide what would never be. Sleight of the hand, what your back couldn't see. You're just a distraction. So lunch and dinner on me. Now you're in traction, and you finally see those big bright eyes. Now they don't show, but you believed it so. those big bright eyes. Now they don't show, but you believed it so.
Thank you.
So this has been great, Tim. I've enjoyed talking with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for your time, and thank you for doing this.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great.
And so tell people, you have a website? Or
Yes, I've got a website, timfoley.space.
.space,
Yeah.
okay.
And so you'll find my future gigs and what's happening on that site.
So timfoley.space for gigs and things.
Things Asian Cuisine, yes.
Yeah, so that's
in Wakefield, Tuesday nights, 7 to 10.
All right, good. Well, and that's every week.
Every week.
Okay, that's great. So we've been talking with Tim Foley today, and I wanted to mention again, hearingroom.net is a place that you can go and find more information about the Hearing Room, and you can check out the Greenville Junction Shop, the Greenville Junction Shop is an upcycling shop. You should check it out. And Greenville Junction with a K, JUNKTION.com, or Greenville Junction Shoppy on Facebook. And everybody have a great week.
If you start with a dream and share it with some friends, the idea deepens and grows. The dream takes shape, it has form and substance, a community soon arose. A listening room, a hearing room, a place to find a home to play. A listening room, the hearing room, express yourself and have your say. The walls are thin, and sirens blare. The tables sit near folding chairs. The stage is set with paint and glue, and love went into every screw. The light shine bright on every star. They come to play from near and far. The light shine bright on every star. They come to play from near and far. The listening room, the hearing room, a place to find a home to play. The listening